Good evening, and I want to welcome everyone to Borough Council's meeting on Tuesday, February 11th, 2014. I'd like to start with a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Crack, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Bowers. Present. Mr. Dalton.
Present.
Ms. Dugan.
Here.
Mr. Richter.
Present.
Mr. Kuznar.
Present.
Ms. Mayo.
Here.
Mr. Perednik. Mr. Kowaleski.
Present.
Mr. Mayor.
Semper Fidelis.
The man,
Latin for all is faithful.
the manager and solicitor and chief are here. You have a quorum. You're ready to go.
Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I would just like to ask council's indulgence, like we did last month, to move up some of the resolutions under item 5, items 5A and 5B, to be before public participation, then to go into public participation, and then finish up the appointments and resolutions, our public resolutions under our item 5. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll do that. Item 3 is the approval of the January 6th and January 14th council meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the council minutes of January 6, 2014, as well as the council minutes of January 14th, 2014.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bowers and a second by Mr. Richter. Any comments or questions or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. With that, we'll go on to item 5A, a resolution acknowledging Pat and Nick Nada, and I apologize if I got that name incorrect, for the volunteer service with the Tree Advisory Commission in 2013. What is council's pleasure?
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. Bowers. For everyone's, for the public's edification, I'll read the resolution into the minutes. A resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging Pat and Nick Nada for their volunteer service in 2013 that helped to maintain public trees. Whereas the Borough of Phoenixville has a tree advisory commission to manage the many public trees throughout the borough, and whereas Pat and Nick Nada volunteered their services by spending more than 20 hours apiece pruning public street trees, and whereas the public street trees provide many economic and beautification benefits to the Borough of Phoenixville and its residents, and whereas Borough Council wishes to express its appreciation to Pat and Nick for their devotion to making our community a better place to live, now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville that Pat and Nick Nada are recognized and publicly acknowledged for their hard work and devotion to the borough and all of its residents. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Is Pat and or Nick here to receive this? Thank you very much for your efforts, and I apologize if I butchered your name too much. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item B, consider approval of a resolution acknowledging Leo Skoda for his years of service as the mayor of Phoenixville. What is council's pleasure?
Can I make the motion?
We have a motion.
Okay, so I second the motion.
Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. Perednik, and I'll read this into the minutes as well, and for public both here and at home, a resolution by the Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, Chester County, Pennsylvania, acknowledging Leo Skota for his extensive years of service to the Borough of Phoenixville. Whereas Leo Skota served honorably as the mayor of the Borough of Phoenixville from 1998 to 2013, and whereas Leo Skota served as member of Borough Council from 1972 to 1978, and whereas Leo Skota served on the Zoning Hearing Board from 1980 to 1981, and whereas Leo Skota gave of his time as the Recreation Department Tennis Instructor Director from 1966 to 2013, for which he took no compensation, thereby saving the borough nearly $30,000. And whereas Borough Council wishes to express its most sincere appreciation to Leo Skota for his incredible and invaluable years of public service to the citizens of Phoenixville and surrounding communities. Now therefore be it resolved, and it is hereby resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Phoenixville, that Leo Skota is recognized and publicly praised for his selfless devotion in providing for the efficient and effective government which is responsive to the needs of its citizens. Just got to. Would you like to? We got to take the vote first, Leo. I do want you to come up. Any comments from council? I just want to add, number one, you've been giving more service than I've been alive to the Borough of Phoenixville, which is impressive in and of itself, and the varied and extensive amount of benefit and the guidance and leadership and everything else that you gave to the borough and its residents is truly a unique gift, and we are all very grateful. And I think I can speak on behalf of the borough residents for that, so thank you, Leo. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, Leo.
Very good, thank you.
We'll move on, we'll move back up to public participation. So I'll ask any of the public that wishes to participate to come forward. I just ask that you keep it to within 5 minutes, which is the limit on public participation, as well as that if you're addressing anything that is later on in the agenda, specifically the conditional use hearing, I believe that there will be additional time as part of that conditional use hearing to have public participation with regard to that issue. So I ask that you hold those comments until that time.
Good evening. My name's Alan Fegley, Superintendent of Schools of the Phoenixville Area School District. And I just wanted to come and thank the borough and thank Mr. Collick and Gene Crack for all the great work they did over this last ice storm. Last Wednesday, as we all know, we faced an unusual storm, and I forget how early in the day I was receiving calls trying to find out how we could work together, the school district and the borough, to solve the challenge of no electricity for so many residents. Mr. Crack and Mr. Collick were of the utmost help and guidance in getting us to open up Barclay School, and then your staffing of that school for that entire time until Monday morning at 6 a.m. really was a great service, and they were wonderful to work with. They left the building in outstanding shape. There was very little cleanup for us to have to do. So thank you very much. We look forward. Hopefully we don't have to use the facility again this coming Thursday, Friday, or any other time in the near future. But I just also wanted to let you know from the Board of Education that our facilities are available to use, and we will follow your direction as to how you wish us to utilize those facilities. But thank you very much. Really appreciate everything that the borough did.
Thank you, Dr. Fegley. Thank you to the school district as well.
Steve Atkins, Walnut Street. To answer your question, Christopher Bauer, the zoning code does fall under the ADA Act. You must revise your policies if you have a setback of 8 feet, a business or residence can apply for a variance for the 5 feet that is necessary for the switchback ramp to let them have commerce with our town. You don't have a choice. It's shoved down your throat. Penalties are obnoxious. They look for voluntary compliance. But the Department of Justice says the fines are individually culpable. That's to answer your question from a couple months ago. This building still does not have compliance with the ADA Act of 1990. This is a new building, and somebody thinks it's funny and a farce to write in our newspaper, anybody with a disability, call the borough and we will accommodate you. That's not your pleasure anymore. This is a new building. Your elevators are out of whack. Your ramp is out of whack. I think you're out of whack. Enough said on that. Secondly, minutes. I'm told the minutes are not available to the public until the council approves them. Well, what do? Put public participation words into their mouth. I've been going several years now, and my words are not recorded as they come out of my mouth. Sometimes nowhere near it. We have a right to vet the minutes. Unless you want to create something that we don't know about. And I know that's true. So how about some accessibility before you have 100 wheelchairs outside and a Department of Justice investigation? I can call that in a day. The only one amongst you is Chief Mossman's reached out to the Department of Justice how they handle arrests and engagement with lawbreakers or not lawbreakers. So why don't you enter 2014 and make this borough compliant? Because you'll all go down. They don't pick on a particular town. They scoop you all up, which would be a good thing, since this place was built on corruption. And here, problems with the ADA and the borough. You guys do anything to help us except steal our money?
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any other public participation?
Hi, my name is Tash Kassam. I've been in the borough now since 2001, and I have to say that I've seen a tremendous change since 2001 for the better in the borough of Phoenixville. And so my wife and I have become investors in this town, and will continue to do so because we believe that the future is bright for this town. However, there are some things that become problems. I called in about 2 weeks ago to complain about the fact that the road that sits right next to the Dunkin' Donuts, the prior Dunkin' Donuts, which is called Buttonwood Drive or Buttonwood Road, has not been plowed through this very severe weather. And they refuse to plow it because they say it doesn't belong to the borough, it's not in your purview. Then I ask, whose purview is it? Because there are a number of residences there, a number of businesses on that road. And last week I had to actually pull with my Jeep a baby Fiat out of the hole that's been created now because the driveway has not been maintained. And it's becoming quite dangerous for the residents who live on this road, and there's probably, I'm guessing, probably 40 to 50 residents that live in that small section right there. So my request to the borough is to take responsibility for this road. I'm not sure what the process is that this needs to go through, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. But I'm not speaking on behalf of my neighbors and everybody else. I'm speaking on behalf of my investment on that road, which is one of a few. And I just need some help. So I'm not sure where to go. So this is why I'm here today. Okay. And I have a copy of a Google map explaining exactly where this hole is and the snow removal needs to be happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tim Wilfong from Wilfong Law on 21 South Main Street, and I spoke here at the last council meeting about the parking situation on Main Street with the streetscapes, improvements to Main Street, and we have come with our group in support of keeping the parking on Main Street to ask the council to reconsider the decision that was made approving the plan that takes away the parking. And I just wanted to provide some background information because basically I just want to frame the issue a little bit. Now, when there were 3 streetscapes meetings, committee meetings, I believe, prior to the council vote. The importance of that is that I attended 2 of those meetings. The first meeting had very few people. Well, the second meeting is the first one I attended, had very few people that showed up. The third meeting, business owners actually closed down their shops to attend because they heard that the parking was going to be taken away with the new Streetscapes project. And I could tell you that, you know, Julie from the Wooden Spoon closed their shop down. The tattoo shop, 7 Stars, closed their shop down. You know, Wilfong Tax and Wilfong Law were closed at that time, so we can all attend that meeting. And about 35 people showed up at the Streetscapes committee meeting, and it was probably 85% against taking away the parking on that particular meeting. So most of the people left that meeting confident that the issue was decided. You know, the parking was going, you know, the question isn't whether we should not do streetscapes. The question is, you know, there were 2 different plans that were put up. There was one plan where it had parking, kept the parking that we have right now. Then there was one plan where there wasn't parking with a bump out. So those were the 2 choices presented to the people who closed down their shops to attend the Streetscapes committee meeting, and overwhelmingly 85% said to take the plan where the meeting was where the parking was going to be kept the same way it was. So, you know, and then at the subsequent council meeting, there was a vote by the, you know, a lot of the prior council members. Of course, it was their last council meeting period, so there was a vote that was taken with, I don't know if it was 3 council members that were turning over or 4 at the next council meeting after the Streetscapes committee meeting. And so the people who came to that council meeting were about 5 or 6 people that spoke, and they were the minority that was at the committee meeting. So, you know, basically there were another 85% people that were saying no to getting rid of the parking, but the only people that really knew a vote was going to take place were 5 people that showed up at the council meeting and spoke. 2 for Plan B, which took away the parking and made it. And I watched the council meeting online, and you know, it made it seem like everybody was for taking away the parking, when in fact it's the exact opposite. It was 85% against the new parking plan, taking away the parking. So I just wanted to mention that, and other people have showed up tonight to speak on this issue. So basically what we're asking for is a reconsideration of the streetscapes renovation, where the prior plan that actually kept the parking would be approved, opposed to the plan that takes away the parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a minute and a half left.
Mr. Atkins, you've already had your,
I said I have a minute and a half left.
Mr. Atkins,
I said I have a minute and a half left.
Mr. Atkins, you've had your turn.
I have a minute and a half left.
Mr. Atkins.
Due to parking, even your own parking enforcement officers do not know that you offer 2-hour parking and a handicapped person is entitled to 3. Commonwealth law, federal law. You guys are stupid.
Good evening. My name's Jim O'Brien. I, too, was here last month and spoke on behalf of the Main Street development. And for a fact check, there was a third meeting that incorporated many other people, and I was one of them once I became aware of the design of Main Street, and I participated in that third meeting. That was still in committee. And at that meeting, there was a vote taken to take it forward to council, which included the design element that includes parking. Includes the plaza design. I had the opportunity to speak to Michael Kuznar, who I want to give him credit for walking the streets today and talking to a number of shop owners and getting feedback. And I have to tell you that there's going to be differing opinions on all of this, one side and the other, and it's a very difficult decision when you get all of these varying opinions. But I'm very firm in my understanding of where we are with this, and here's what I want to offer to you. I wrote a letter in support of this, and I want to read it to the council so you understand contextually why I'm in support of this, all right? I was writing to emphasize my support of the approved plan to develop South Main Street from Church Street to Bridge Street, which includes the development of the plaza from Church to Prospect. That's above Prospect. At the last Borough Council meeting, there were several people opposed to this plan, as well as several in support. The principal opposition involves the loss of parking on Main Street, which it was the premise of a petition that was submitted. And that petition was really about parking. Do you want parking removed from Main Street? Contextually, I would have signed that if I didn't know what the plaza design was and the full scope of what this project is. But people signed it based on that, all right? And that's reasonable that they did sign it. Nobody wants to lose parking. And I'm in agreement that our town has a parking issue. However, this development is not about the loss of 12 parking spaces. It's about the continuing development of our downtown retail district. And by creating a gathering place and attraction on South Main Street, we will be expanding the traction beyond Bridge Street, increasing the uniqueness and marketability of all of downtown. And if there's any doubt to this, we have the proof in Bridge Street itself. When it was developed, the wider sidewalks included bump outs, which reduced the number of parking spaces, but created a pedestrian-friendly gathering area which attracts clients and businesses. It also served to calm traffic speed through town. You can see that when you drive through Bridge Street. The plaza development on Main Street will serve to do the same. By developing Main Street as a destination, it enhances the prospects of additional retail development on the 200 block of Gay Street, bringing Church Street rather, and also over to Gay Street, bringing a town center feel to town as opposed to just developing Bridge Street straight from the 100 to the 500 block. It will also enhance the development of the 100 block of South Main Street, which extends beyond the downtown district because there'll be people coming up from Bridge Street. No development is without risk, including the pressures on existing retail business that will lose parking in front of their buildings. Here are some suggestions to offset the loss short and long term. Because we have a parking problem. Visibility of parking, create wayfinding. People need to know where parking is. They don't know that there's parking behind the High Bridge. They don't know where the parking lots are. They're not clearly identified. I know there's been a project underway. It's yet to be completed. That's essential for any parking to solve the parking problem in town, not 12 spaces. Secondly, simplicity. Complete the install of the parking meters, which I know is underway but not completed. That way people will know where and how they're supposed to pay. And third, capacity. We need to add capacity to solve the problem. 12 spaces is, in the context of Main Street, is very important to the shop owners and the property owners on that street. And I know, because I happen to be one, okay? And lastly, in terms of capacity, think about private and public partnerships. There's churches, there's public buildings that could be used as long as they're identified as such and people could use them for parking at peak times, particularly on First Fridays and such. Additionally, 15 parking spots on Prospect Street in the parking lot behind Main Street. That parking lot needs to be upgraded, lighting, and potentially parking spots could be designated for consumers as opposed to residents, which would also add to some immediate capacity. So I'm trying to help with solutions around the parking broadly and specifically to this project while keeping this great design that we have a one-time shot to develop to enhance our downtown. And the reason that I bring this to light is I'm personally vested in this situation. I'm the owner of 6 Main Street, 22, 24, 26, and 28. I own 5 properties on this block. So I'm willing to take the risk for the properties that I have. My wife owns Best Friends. She runs a shop on Main Street, and she is concerned about the loss of parking. Warren Brown, who's an owner-operator at 30 Main Street, is in favor of this. John Lutman, who's an owner-operator on South Main Street, is in favor of this. Brandon Whitaker, who's an owner of 2 other properties on Main Street, is in favor of this. So the property owners, 8 of us that own 8 properties in this space, 5 of us are in favor of this. And we also have tenants that are involved in my own case and several others. I don't want to lose any tenants. I don't want tenants to be under duress. But for the long term, this is the best solution for us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public participation?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and council president, and all council members. My question, one is item 10A. You say there will be other public participation on that?
Yes.
All right. The other question I have is item 12F. I think that's the right one. Yeah, policy. Item 2, F2 actually. Why is that change being done? Or is it an addition?
This is public participation. We can address it later if you would like, but I'm going to ask you to ask your questions, and then we'll limit council's responses until later.
All right. I guess that would be my one question then, would be, why are we doing it? Why is it being done? The other question I have about, essentially right now, as I see that conditional use goes before planning commission right now first, and it looks like this is saying that it should go before, if I'm interpreting it, that it would go before this body first, before Borough Council. And I see that, is it also saying that zoning hearing board would come before council first? Is that?
Again, we'll address that later, but if that's a question, we can get you a response, Dr. Sanik.
All right. one comment, I mean, that's my understanding of, I knew about the conditional use thing being changed. I didn't know about the zoning hearing board. But it seemed like, and I know other townships do it, I'm not familiar with boroughs, but it would seem like you would want, conditional use is really a zoning kind of item. It would seem like it ought to be actually going to zoning hearing board, but not to borough council first. That's just my thought on it. It would seem like you'd want to work through the different boards and commissions and then arrive here and understand it and have some of that understanding going on besides kind of like a top-down process. So that's my comment on that. Lastly, and it doesn't really concern me too much, I mean, I don't own any properties on Main Street, but one comment I have on that is Reading, Pennsylvania, they took all the parking 20 years ago, 25 years ago out of Penn Street, downtown Reading, hoping to revitalize that. That did not work, taking all the parking out. In fact, it really hurt it. I think if you go to Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, that's one in process where they decided to eliminate it. I think only buses can come through there and taxis. It's a section of Chestnut Street in Center City. You know, it might behoove Borough Council and the business people to look at those two items because they're very similar to what's being proposed and do a little cost-benefit analysis there as to what did it really accomplish what it's supposed to. I mean, one of the comments made tonight by one of the Planning Commission applicants is that, you know, a lot of the town was laid out 100 years ago when it was horse and buggies. People do drive cars today. I'm sure most people got here today I'm sure some walked, but I would be willing to bet, looking at how full the parking lot is, the vast majority drove a vehicle. You need to park those vehicles. So that's all I have for tonight, and I thank you for taking time.
Thank you.
I'm Alexis Grippy, speaking on behalf of Salon Fiber, and we believe that any loss of parking will be detrimental not just to our businesses, but the town as a whole. We think that the plan that includes keeping parking is the best option. I actually had to walk over here today because the last meeting I came to, I drove, and it took me 20 minutes to find parking right up the street. The parking lot was full, the streets were full, so we just believe keeping parking will be the best option for our businesses, the town, and our clients. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Davidson, 23 South Main Street. And I wasn't not planning on talking tonight, but I was just sitting here listening to everyone come up here and talk about the parking for the businesses. And I have a business, and I don't have a retail business. So I don't need the parking in front of my house. But I live there. I'm a resident. And no one's talking about the residents. And understand on the odd side of the street there, we have no parking. If you take the parking away, we lose all the parking in the front. We have no parking in the back. No parking in the back. Not even an alleyway, okay? So consider that we have probably 3 or 4 apartment buildings alone in that block. And if somebody moves, where's that moving truck gonna be? Where's it gonna go? And we have people moving all the time, okay? So think about the residents too. It's not just about the businesses. If I go shopping on a Sunday and I have to take my groceries into my house, where do I park my car? And if you tell me lot 1 or lot 2 or lot 3, I have a sticker. They are full 60 to 70% of the times. So guess what? I'm gonna park 3 blocks away, 4 blocks away. So I'm not gonna buy too much at the store, okay? Because I can't park in front of my house. These are things I really seriously, guys, I really think that we need to rethink this a little bit, to spend the extra month or whatever it takes to think about what needs to happen here. Did we think about every possible, situation? We're talking about the residents, the businesses and the property owners, and we all have a different opinion. I know that. But we have to find a way that this kind of works. It melds together, because there has to be a way that this can work better than just eliminating the parking, because this is a serious problem. We're going to have some huge issues on Main Street once this goes into effect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'm Dave Chihuaga. I stood before council last meeting and expressed our opposition to the elimination of parking on Main Street. And I just wanted to go over quickly just the reasons why we oppose this. Number one, we believe it'll drive our business out of town, or at least off Main Street for sure, and we'd have to find another location for it. Our business is Valor Men's Grooming. I also own other buildings in town in the business district. The reason that the simple reason we believe that it'll drive Valor off the street is that we rely heavily, maybe 50% on walk-in traffic for men's haircuts. We're a nice salon. We're bringing good traffic to the street. Those people are also patronizing other businesses, stopping and getting gifts, eating lunch at the Wooden Spoon and elsewhere. But if you take away our clients' ability to park in front of our space and leave us no other alternatives, and frankly, there is no good alternative that I've heard mentioned yet that will solve the problem for our business, you'll put us out of business. We can't afford to lose that walk-in traffic. Our customers pull up in the street and they jump out of their cars and they say, "Hey, can you squeeze me in?" Well, there won't be any more of that if they have to park even down at Molly Maguire's, or they're not going to run up the street to do that. But because these spaces are being managed so very well, and I watched it again today from our storefront window, there are always 2 or 3 spaces available. The utilization is optimized. Our visits are probably not 2 hours, like nobody's staying more than 2 hours, or they're sure to get a ticket in town. 2 hours and 15 minutes, you're likely to get a ticket. Parking authority's doing an excellent job there. So it's rolling the cars over every 45 minutes or so, and I would say that these aren't 12 spaces. These are maybe 100 visits a day. I stood with the owner of a major restaurant in town who frankly believes that today, just a few minutes ago, and we watched in the 5 minutes that we were talking, 5 cars pull in out of those 12 spaces. It's a really compelling argument to keep those spaces. We need them, and we don't have any good alternatives. Like Church Street, the residents are already competing during the day to find spaces to park their cars for where they live. We're going to push those 100 visits a day onto Church Street. I think that's a really bad idea. We also have some disabled customers that come into Valor, and we help them out of their cars, not often in wheelchairs, but sometimes with walkers, some elderly customers that we really value. How can we ask them? They can't make it a block to our business. We're going to have to say goodbye to those customers. I mean, I'm not trying to pull at your heartstrings, but I'm telling you, there's a real financial aspect to this that I hope you guys really seriously consider, because, we own the apartments above. I think that's a great point. How are our apartment tenants going to carry their groceries if they have no place to park? How are we going to accept, deliveries to our shop, or FedEx deliveries and all? You're also, I don't know if all of you know this, but you're eliminating I believe, and check this, that you're eliminating the ability for the fire company to turn the corner and make it down the street. Not only that, this plaza's on a hill, has been stated before. It's not the optimal place for a plaza. You're going to need legs longer on one side than the other for people to comfortably sit out there. Our own parking study says that the sidewalk will be less friendly because you're removing the 3,000-pound safety barrier that those cars provide. The traffic speed will likely increase because we're taking away the friction that on-street parking causes. So, I mean, for all those reasons and several others that I want to take your time tonight to discuss, I just really urge you to reconsider this on our behalf. I mean, to me, this is life and death for our business. I'm not only here for our apartment tenants, but I'm also here for our employees. I'm asking you to please reconsider.
Thank you. Seeing no further public participation, we'll close this round of public participation. I'm going to ask for council's indulgence one more time. We have a presentation that was later on, and in fairness to, I think, the individuals that are here for that, I'd like to bump that up and do that now, if everyone is okay. So we'll move up item 6, presentations. It's the dedication of the plaque for the Phoenix Ironworks painting, and I'll ask Barbara Cohen to come forward. Yes, please.
Thank you. There is a painting parked above your heads, And it is here because of some very special and wonderful people. And they are here this evening to tell the story of a gentleman by the name of Joseph Hennessy, who created that painting back in 1958 for the Phoenix Steelworkers Union. And it hung in the Union Hall, which is now near the Chamber of Commerce building on the 100 block of Bridge Street. A gentleman came from Lambertville, New Jersey, and I thank you very much for your patience. We thought this was going to be at 7 with the meeting at 7:30. His name is John Gabrick, and he saved Joseph Hennessy's Phoenix Ironworks painting. It was in storage with stuff after the steel company closed in 1987. And thanks to Mr. Gabrick, it went to the Atwater Kent Museum, now known as the Philadelphia History Museum. It remained there from 1989 to 2009 when it went to a storage facility in East Falls. Another hero is here this evening, and his name is Dr. Gus Spector, because Gus went down to the museum and asked the curator, where is Joseph Hennessy's painting? Well, it was in storage. And Gus called and said, Barb, we got to do something. And thanks to an incredible team, we met with officials from the museum, and they agreed to transfer the painting to the Schuylkill River Heritage Center, provided it was restored. But how do you move a 16-foot painting from East Falls in Philadelphia to a facility in Malvern where it could be restored? There's another hero who's here this evening. Where is Bob Peck? He had to leave. Oh, I'm so sorry, because it was Bob Peck and Steel City Displays who got the painting from East Falls and transferred it as a courtesy to the Schuylkill River Heritage Center to his facility in Malvern. It was there that he provided Mark Buckrath, is Mark still here? Who did a marvelous job, spent 2 months restoring the painting and the frame at Bob Peck's facility in Malvern. And I have to thank Borough Council as well as private donors who help with the restoration costs. Dr. Spector, Dr. Rosato, an anonymous donor, Mrs. Henry Jordan, and the Fieldstone 1793 Foundation. And thanks to all of those donors, the painting has been restored, and we have a 30-year loan agreement with the Borough of Phoenixville. There are 2 grandsons of Joseph Hennessy who are here this evening. Matthew is here this evening, and Craig Hennessy as well. Joseph Hennessy actually graduated from the Philadelphia College of Art in 1930. He was an extraordinary artist who did a lot of work. His paintings are on view in the Capitol in Harrisburg. And of course, every time you pass by Reeves Park and you see the Griffin Cannon with that mural behind it in that building, that's Joseph Hennessy's painting as well. It's extraordinary the journey that this painting has taken. It really is. And one person I need to mention is Sue Marshall, who is on our Schuylkill River Heritage Center Board of Directors. Because when the transfer occurred, there was a small name on the bottom, and that was John Gabrick's name, and it was Sue who did the investigatory work and found him on his last day of work with the phone number, December 31st, so we could get in touch with him and find out the story of how he had it transferred to the Atwater Kent Museum back in 1989. So enjoy this extraordinary painting. We are happy to have a partnership agreement with you and appreciate your participation in the painting's restoration. I'd also like to thank Craig Hennessy for allowing me to take pictures in his home in Spring City. What you see in front of President Kowaleski is a self-portrait that Joseph Hennessy did of himself. And Bill Andreessen, who's on our board, actually replicated my photograph so you could all see what Joseph Hennessy looked like. The gentleman whose painting now hangs here, his image is here before us. Finally, Jean said I had 5 minutes, and I'll talk fast. As I said, it's very quickly. On behalf of the Schuylkill River Heritage Center Board of Directors, we have an extraordinary website, thanks to many, many volunteers, one of which is a 10th grader who located the longitude and latitude of over 100 bridges across the United States. They're all up on our website for everyone to enjoy. As part of that project, Bill Andreessen produced an extraordinary poster. It's called Historic Phoenix Bridges, and I promised Jean Crack that when we got the poster done, this is your housewarming gift from the Schuylkill River Heritage Center as partners in the community. So enjoy the painting. Thank you for paying the insurance every year. And we are delighted to see it here so that we can all appreciate the legacy of the Schuylkill, of Joseph Hennessy's artwork. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I just want to also thank everyone that was involved with getting this portrait here behind me in Borough Hall. The efforts were extraordinary and very appreciated. Thank you very much.
Here's the explanation for the poster.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.
I think now we can continue on with the agenda as regularly set forth. But I believe we're on item 5C. Consider accepting the resignation of Shai Perednik from the Planning Commission. What is council's pleasure?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Richter, second by Ms. Mayo. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. Moving on with item D, consider accepting the resignation of Michael Kuznar from the Planning Commission. What is council's pleasure?
I'll make the motion to accept Michael Kuznar's resignation from planning.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Perednik, second by Mr. Dalton. I guess turnaround is fair play, but I guess Mike didn't. But anyways, what is council's pleasure? Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have currently one opening on the zoning hearing board, 3 openings on the planning commission, and then one one opening that will come up in the near future with Mr. Carnival's expiration of his current term. So what is council's pleasure? Ms. Mayo?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Edwin Soto to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Ms. Dugan. Comments or questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. Ms. Mayo?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint John Ewald to the Planning Commission.
Second motion.
Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. Perednik. Again, what is any comments or questions or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
2 noes. 6-2. Gene is now pointing out to me, Borough Manager's pointing out to me that we have the three vacancies have 3 different terms. One expiring March 31, 2017, one expiring March 31, 2016, and one expiring March 31, 2014. We have a vacancy that expires in 1 month?
Well, that would be a 4-year term.
Oh, that would be a 4-year term, so that would actually be to 2018. Okay. So, I guess we need to clarify the order. Ms. Mayo? Oh, Ms. Dugan?
Oh, I was just going to suggest, the way we've done it before is the first person that we appointed just now have the longer term and the last person have the shorter term, with the exception of the reappointment.
Do you want to make that in the form of a
Sure,
motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Great. Second by motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Dalton. Any discussion or anyone need clarification on that? So that would be, for everyone's, and for my sanity, that would mean that Mr. Soto would be appointed for the term that will expire March 31, 2018, and Mr. Ewald, the term, would be appointed to the term that expires March 31, 2017. Mr. Bowers? Okay. Yes. So any comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Okay. Mr. Dalton?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Justin Baird to Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Dalton, second by Mr. Bowers. And just for clarification, that, are you recommending his appointment for the term that would expire March 31, 2016? Okay. Is that correct, Mr. Bowers? Okay. Comments? Mr. Richter?
Just before that last vote, I just want to reiterate that there are a lot of good candidates out there, and I think we need to thank everybody for coming out because it was a great pool to choose from.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 7-1. Mr. Richter?
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Tom Carnival.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Prednick. Any discussion on that motion? Reappointment of Thomas Carnival to the Planning Commission. So I guess his term would expire 2018 as well, so it would be a 4-year term. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Mr. Richter?
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Joseph McFarland to the Zoning Hearing Board expiring 2018.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Bowers. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, 8-0. The borough manager just reminded me that we're going to have several throughout the year on the various boards and commissions, so more so to the public, if anyone is interested in any of the commissions or boards, I ask that you put in your application and information with the borough so that we have that as those appointments come forward. And then if you have any questions or concerns about what positions are going to contact the borough, contact Gene or one of the council members, and we can help you out with that information. Mr. Bowers?
Council President, I would just remind those appointed to the Planning Commission, this meeting, that the February meeting is this Thursday, February 13th at 7 p.m.
Hopefully.
Remind those who have been appointed to be sure that the borough manager has your contact information so that appropriate packets can be sent to you.
I'll just add one thing, that we're watching an eye on the storm that's coming, so that meeting may or may not happen. So all the more reason to make sure Gene has your contact information so that he can let you know if that meeting is going on as scheduled or will be canceled. No, planning does, Mr. Prednick just pointed out, very good point, that Planning Commission does not plan the weather, so. Moving on, council communication and council participation. Mr. Prednick?
So I'd like to take a moment to recognize the staff and the volunteers I had during the recent storm. I just want to read a statement I prepared. The recent ice storm was a hardship to say the least. The power of nature unleashes is beautiful and destructive. But what's even more beautiful is people coming together to help each other. From borough staff to borough management to volunteers to the Office of Emergency Management to local businesses, everyone put in a helping hand. Regardless of the size of the deed, great deeds shouldn't go unnoticed. These people should be commended for their heroism and great heart. I'd like to motion the borough management and staff compile a list of all involved and we formally recognize them at our next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Prednick. Any other council participation communications? Mr. Kuznar.
Good evening, everyone. During my time campaigning, there were many issues brought to my attention from the residents of the Middle Ward. And like any area, if polled, you would notice a pattern of a popular issue that continues to come up from citizens. And that being said, the number one issue or complaint I heard in the Middle 1 and Middle 2 precincts was in regards to parking in the Middle Ward and how it is scarce. So furthermore, today I visited several businesses on Main Street where this streetscaping project is going to take place, and I spoke with many of the business workers and owners. And almost on a 50-50 margin, I just want to be perfectly blunt with you, was in favor and disfavor of the streetscape project, with the opposed on a consensus stating it removes parking and those for it stating it will look very nice. If I may give a quick analogy so you understand my thoughts, if you own a business and your employees claim you aren't giving them enough break time and you respond by giving them less break time, I don't think you're being a very efficient employer. So obviously there's variables to that, but basically I hope you understand what I'm saying in regards to my constituents who came to me a lot during my time campaigning saying that they would like me to do something about the lack of parking. So I don't feel I'm doing my constituents due diligence and ignoring the fact that a recent project we've brought forward before, I was sworn in will remove 12 parking spaces, mainly because, as I mentioned, while I was out there, that was the top complaint I heard. And like the analogies I just used, I don't feel like I'm being a good councilman by sitting by while a project moves forward that will further complicate one of the top issues that my constituents brought forward to me. I called the architects today as well, and I'm aware that KMS Design Group has a plan that doesn't involve removing parking, and I would like to ask the President and Council to examine moving this decision to be discussed in the Economic Development Committee or at the very least open it up for discussion tonight for further review. I'm not trying to destroy this idea. In fact, if the parking weren't an issue, I'd be very for it. The project seems like it has a lot of potential for to look really nice, but unfortunately the Middle Ward does have a parking problem, and I feel it's not something that we could just pretend isn't in existence. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council participation? Mr. Prednick?
Just my bit on the parking. So during the Economic Development Committee, we received a detailed report from fellow citizens with possible options for creating additional parking. I have the report right here. And while some were far out and unrealistic, others were plausible. As we continue to hear concerns from our neighbors and business owners regarding parking, I'd like to enter the report into the record and make a motion or open for discussion. The borough staff and management conduct a study to create additional parking and increase space visibility.
Well, are you jumping off of what I just proposed, that we open it up for discussion either in this meeting or for Economic Development Committee, or you?
Well, let me clarify, was that a motion? Let me ask.
But so was my first one about recognition for some of the volunteers.
Okay.
I mean, Mike also open for discussion, asked for motion, so.
Okay, everyone that not talking and has their button pushed, let's unpush it, because there's only a certain amount of people that can have the button pushed. And if you are talking, Mr. Prednick, please use the button.
So what I was saying before is that the first one that I brought had a request to make a motion as well. What Mike brought up had a request to make a motion, open for discussion. The line that I bring up has a request for motion and open discussion as well. So we have, as far as I see it, 3 items. Then I apologize if I was not clear, if that was missed. I'll be more than happy to read it again. But, I think we kind of owe our constituents the time to at least consider those options. So the first one was mine regarding the recognition of the staff, volunteers, and everybody involved in the recent storm.
Okay, so let's take these one at a time. So
Okay.
that was a motion for that. So do we have a second on that motion? Okay. Motion by Mr. Prednick, second by Mr. Dalton and I'm going to paraphrase that or try and reiterate that for the purposes of the minutes. The motion was to recognize staff, volunteers, and there was a third group I think I'm missing.
And local businesses.
And local businesses that assisted with the recent storm.
Correct.
Okay. So, discussion on that motion. I guess for the purposes of the discussion, other than doing a resolution, is what you're proposing doing a resolution like we did tonight for for the residents?
So one option is either doing a resolution or that a list be compiled. I mean, as part of the resolution, a list would be compiled with the staff and people involved, right? So if you're going to resolution, you would give it to specific people, or would you give it to general public?
There's 2 ways you can do this.
Yep, go.
2 ways to do this is individually, which is, you
Yep.
have to do some serious work to pull it together.
Yes.
That's fine. The other is to do a public recognition from here.
Okay.
Publicly, it's part of the minutes and to recognize that way.
What the borough manager, Mr. Crack, is advising me is that there's 2 ways to do it. You can do a general resolution where it's entered into the minutes for a general thank you to the groups. The alternative is to do what we did tonight, and we'd have to figure out all those individual names, which may be cumbersome at best, if possible, even if it's possible, and I don't know if it's possible, or I don't know if it's impossible, to come up with a complete list of everyone that helped out. So,
So I'd suggest a general resolution.
okay, so that is amendment, so we,
If you make a motion, if the motion is to publicly recognize it, you're doing that now, you're publicly.
okay.
I'm sorry, I got to learn my own rules. What I'm getting at is, yes, it would be very cumbersome to try and figure out all of the various players, because it's a very broad brush of folks from the school district all the way, to whomever.
Agreed.
The other is, right here, right now, you making the motion that you are publicly thanking all of those businesses, all of those volunteers, recognize you can't name everybody, but you are making a global statement right here, and that's part of the minutes, and that's part of the record.
Yep.
And that would be your motion.
Okay. So I'd like to kind of take another stab at the motion.
Well, the motion's
Okay.
on the floor. I think
Okay.
just for clarification purposes, the motion, as I see it now, would be a general resolution, or a motion for a general resolution thanking all individual staff members, all individual volunteers, and the various businesses and business owners that assisted in the storm, the emergency caused by the storm.
Correct.
Okay. So that's the motion on the floor right now for a thank you, which is what would have essentially happened as a result of this motion. So, now that we've figured out what we're talking about, any comments or questions about that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So it passes unanimously, and just to echo Mr. Prednick, thank you to all the individual staff members, individual volunteers, and business owners and businesses that aided the borough and its residents during this past emergency. It is much appreciated. So, now that we've addressed your first motion, Mr. Kuznar, do you have a motion that you wanted to make?
Well, as I'd spoken to you earlier, you said it's, and I guess now I could ask Gene. James was worried that it was too late for it to go to discussion in Economic Development Committee. The possibility of exploring the second option for that doesn't remove parking. and James had, Mr. Kovaleski had suggested that we open it up for discussion in council and add it to the agenda tonight instead. I am obviously just trying, like I said, I'm just trying to do what's best for my ward, so I mean.
I think what you have, what you've done and what has occurred is enough to get you to the end game if you want to go there. And that is, we've had 3 to 4 meetings out on the streets with folks. We've had them at the Phoenixville First meeting. We've had them at the Economic Development Committee meeting. You have had not you, but the previous council had a discussion on the floor, a presentation, and then a vote was taken back in December. More discussion back in January. Nothing came from the floor at that point in time. You have it again here, yet again tonight. It's merely a matter of council making the decision. Does it want to take and put something on the floor tonight and swap out the plans or not? Studying it's not going to take it in. Everybody's right. You're going to get all of the answers that you don't want and all of the answers that you do want. The reality is it's a decision. Do you want the plan with parking or don't you? We have both. It will cost a little bit to make changes because of council's vote in December. We have been moving forward with design specifications and that, but it's not insurmountable. I don't believe that it's necessary to take any more committee discussion or anything else. You have enough information to make your decision. If there's 5 of you that can get to that point and you want to change from plan A to plan B, let's do that, or you do that tonight and move forward so that we can get this thing out to bid. We'd like to get this under construction this year with the funding that we have. I'm always concerned about end games when it comes to contracts with funding, because the longer you delay, and I'm not using that as a tactic, I'm saying you have enough information to make a good decision. Is it A or is it B? Whichever you choose is the one we'll run with.
So I guess I'll make a motion to go for the plan, the streetscape parking plan that doesn't remove parking spaces on Main Street. If I can get a second.
I'll second that. Motion by Mr. Kuznar, second by Mr. Dalton. If I can rephrase that or just put it back into terms for everyone so we all know what we're talking about. Your motion is to essentially swap the 2 plans, go with the plan that does not eliminate the 12 parking spots, but proceed with the plan that was discussed and reviewed in December, the December meeting. Okay. Discussion on that. Ms. Mayo.
I just wanted to put a couple points out there. Due diligence has already been served. We have brought this all the way through several different committees and voted on this in December. For every one person, patron, business owner, whatever, that doesn't like it, there's another one that does like it. And if we keep changing our minds, for every person that comes up to speak to us, we're going to be here until next February dealing with this. The other thing is that the parking, I don't know what it's called, what Mr. Whitaker submitted for the other parking ideas, we are taking that up. I'm the chair of this parking steering committee, and we did speak about it in economic development a couple weeks ago. We do feel that there are some viable options to adding some parking spots within a very close radius of Main Street, and we will be taking that up on the February 27th meeting, parking steering meeting at 6:30, if anybody wants to come and talk about it.
Thank you. Ms. Dugan.
Well, you mentioned that it cost a little bit of money to do this. What are we talking about? What's a little bit of money?
I haven't asked specifically. When we were looking, when this idea was first broached in January, I would have estimated somewhere around $2,500, maybe $3,000 to make some adjustments. We've gotten a lot further along. My guess is that it's going to be upwards of around $7,500, somewhere in that range.
So we would lose $7,500 if we started over from now?
No, I would have to get you to do a budget amendment to increase the,
Oh, great, because I love them so much.
Can I just get clarification, how much was the amount?
it's the project, the design, total project was 61,000, and so somewhere between 61 and 67, 68 is where it's going to wind up.
Okay, and I'd like to ask the solicitor, is there any legal ramifications that we need to consider from if we change this plan? Is there any kind of, do we face any legal issues with the developer?
Yeah. I haven't had the opportunity to review any of the contracts related to this, but that being said, I was just talking to the manager here and conferring with him. We would likely lose, what did you say, 10%?
You can have about a 10% adjustment and not really get sideways with something like this. It is professional services. So that's not as much of a concern at this juncture. It's just the council needs to know that we'd have to increase the budget to compensate for those changes. It's not insurmountable. It's we can do this. It's just I'd have to come back next week to Ms. Dugan.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As Councilwoman Mayo mentioned, it being vetted, the course of events, as I recall, I think as council, we rushed to judgment in December. We had a handful of individuals and business owners speaking to us and not any of the opposing view. And at that particular point in time, Mr. Whitaker, whom you mentioned, had no problem whatsoever with council taking a vote. I applaud the new council members looking into this, gathering additional information, because I think as council, we acted prematurely in December. I wholeheartedly endorse a program to keep that 12 parking spaces. I believe those 12 parking spaces belong to the citizens of Phoenixville. Mr. Whitaker owns the intersection up there, 2 properties, the Merchant Lofts. He has 2 parking lots there which virtually remain empty most of the periods of time. And I have not heard him extend to us anything whatsoever of shared parking. So I would just encourage council to have a full discussion here, make our determination. It's a unique position for us to be in. I don't see it as backstepping. And I do agree with you, Ms. Mayo, that, we have various opinions, but what happened in December, we had a one-sided view. January, we had an overwhelming community voice of 300-plus members of the community speaking to us, and 2 or 3 from the other side, at which time Mr. Whitaker encouraged us not to vote because the other team wasn't present. So today, I think, is our final period of time to take what action. If council so determines that the parking is to be eliminated, I will embrace that plan. But I speak on behalf of maintaining the 12 parking spaces on Main Street. Thank you.
Mr. Richter.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Crack for some clarification. There's been X number of dollars spent so far to get us to the point in the project that we are. How much of that will be considered waste if we change plans versus how much additional funds we will need going forward to change plans?
Waste is a little bit of a tough term, but the fact of the matter is it's changing all of the formulas, because you're going from forgive me if I get this wrong, but let's say the distance is 12 feet on either side, and you're going back to 5 feet. Everywhere in these bid documents, in the design specifications, that has that number equation, whatever that is, whether it be bricks, whether it be demolition, whether it be those types of things, that has to be taken into account. The other significant piece is that there is a lot of utility concerns that with the new design, we're able to be more flexible when it comes to the lighting and the things that we're looking at in this design concept. That gets, we literally wind up climbing on top of the existing utilities. We have more flexibility. That's not a reason to make a decision. It's just, these are factual things. All of that has to be taken into consideration, and all that information gets extrapolated back out, and now it's back to a smaller number. So wherever that is, and all of those bid documents, and anybody that's seen them, bid packages, there's a lot there. That's what gets changed. So it's not so much waste as it is changing a lot of numbers.
Mr. Bowers?
Thank you, Council President. Again, questions on the design elements, some of the design elements. Is this a curb-to-wall rebuild?
Yes.
So it's a curb-to-wall. That curb-to-wall includes those basement doors?
Yes, the Bilco doors.
It includes the steps leading to the first floor of the properties?
It goes up to them. It doesn't include the actual steps. It doesn't include what happens like on Bridge Street where we had the Bilco doors, we made recommendations to the property owner that those be done. They get the benefit of our buying power. They pay for it, but then we would install it. That's what we did, I think, about 4 or 5 times on Bridge Street. That's what occurs. So it's not an actual rebuild of steps. We have to be very cognizant of all of the gas lines, water lines, all of those things. And then what we now believe to be true is there's electrical and water lines of that sort that are in the existing sidewalk. We'd be able to push that out and do a lot more with the current design that's approved. It's going to change some of the cosmetics of what we do with street lighting and what have you if you go with the shorter plan. Again, it's not insurmountable. That's why we gave you 2 plans, so that you could look at all of the options. Parking is a different topic. It's the design element. Which design element do you want? I would say that the argument is, do you believe that you'll be able to deal with parking down the road when you do a design change such as this today? That's what it comes down to.
So right now, there's no aspect of this rebuild that can compel property owners to rebuild steps to the first floor.
That's probably a good question. I don't think we've asked that. I have not asked that question of the design team, but I can tell you from experience with the Streetscapes project, because that's nearly a mile long of improvements. We worked with each of the property owners to come up with something that worked. We had to do field changes on the spot, making grade changes. Some of you are aware with driveways and what have you. We had to deal with those undulations. If that occurs, we would have to, I guess there's some flexibility built into any of the design elements to handle that, but we don't put a lot of dollars towards it. We work with the property owners to say, hey, if we do this is what it's going to do here. We encourage you to participate and help work on its design element because it is changing. Our biggest issue is literally not the property owner's control, but it will be the ADA ramps at the intersections because we have to do all of those. And that's going to be a big number. That would be a big number in either case.
One last question regarding design element. One of the speakers in public participation questioned the turning radius that will now exist at Church Street for fire and emergency equipment. How is that impacted, and is that of issue?
Those are always issues when it comes to apparatus and what have you. It's always a lot easier. And I've been in the trucks on a couple of occasions and driven around, and these guys are extremely good at getting down the very narrow streets. Clearly, in any instance, if you give them more room, it is always better. That is absolutely true. I wouldn't want to characterize it as having an impact. These guys are good drivers. That's what they do. But more is always going to be better when it comes to a fire truck. That's a lot of machinery that has to move around.
And sorry, lastly, is there any, the street lights for that intersection then, do those street lights need to be adapted to give the fire apparatus? Can they control the lighting as they're entering that intersection?
That's not part of this equation. When you talk about lighting, that's what I should have mentioned, is that's one of the keys. In the design element, you have the catenaries that go across back and forth. What I was saying with the various poles and the like is in the current plan that's approved, we know that we can put those poles in the proper place and at the proper heights to cross the street. That may not be true. We may lose that design element if you change the plan to the smaller, because these things have to be buried down at a certain depth, and if we hit those utilities, we can't do that. And so when you have a distance that's only 5 feet, and you've got to go down 3 feet in order to get these things buried to do what they do, we're going to hit utilities. If you're out here, if you're further out and you've got more room, because you've narrowed the cartway down, obviously you have more flexibility to do something. Those are the numbers that's going to get changed in the design element, is you lose all of those things, and now it's going to be a different kind of lighting, or it's going to be a different kind of this. That's why there's a cost to making those changes.
Mr. Prednick?
Thank you, President. So we've been talking about the parking, and what we do with parking. We remove parking, add parking back. But let's step back for a moment and think about the rest of the streetscape and bring up the businesses to Church Street and the businesses along Main Street and Gay. What we're going to do is we're going to allow businesses to wrap around the whole. I think somebody in the participation brought about a city center as opposed to just a city block. That's what we have today. You have the businesses that go on Bridge. Yeah, you have some businesses along Main and Church, but how often do we see people walking on Church? You know, the First Fridays, how many people come around and go over to church? You don't see that very often. I think we have an opportunity now with the streetscape on Main Street to encourage people to walk up that hill and go around to Church Street and then build out the businesses on Church Street. So, I mean, for me, the way that I look at it is we lose those 12 spaces, we lose something, but we always have the opportunity to gain something else. So we lost something, we gained businesses, and then we can always do, as Jen was saying before, on the parking and steering, we can look for other opportunities to find parking spaces. We have a whole borough. I'm sure we can find 100-something parking spaces with that rotation somewhere else by adjusting the time that they can park, adjusting the signage. I think we can find those parking spaces somewhere else. But if we look at the big picture in the long run, I think this is a great thing for our borough. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilman Perednik, I would just add that one of the business owners has spoken in regards to the plaza concept, specifically on Main Street, the slope, the hill. I think that would be in the negative column as far as that goes. Again, I'm hearing from the business owners who are on that block, the turnover and the parking. It's not just the 12 spaces, it's the 24, 48, 96, et cetera. I'm buying into that particular concept for that particular area. And the alternate plan does, meet the same requirements as the plaza setting, but maybe not to the degree, that you would believe, assess. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none? The vote is right now, the motion on the floor is to swap plans, to basically go from the plan that eliminates the 12 spots to go to the plan that retains the 12 spots but still is a streetscapes development on Main Street. I think we should do this on a roll call, just because I think it might be good. So, roll call, please.
This is in favor of swapping the plans.
In favor of swapping the plans. So if you vote aye, for clarification, you are voting to swap the plans.
Mr. Bowers?
No.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
Ms. Dugan?
No.
Mr. Richter?
No.
Mr. Koznar?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo? No. Mr. Perednik?
No.
Mr. Kowaleski?
Yes.
Motion fails 3-4. 3-5.
Motion, I apologize, I keep hitting the wrong button. Motion fails, 3-5. Mr. Prednick, did you, I think your second motion was related to that topic, but I don't know if you have anything left.
I mean, my only thing is, if for Jen, from the parking steering committee, if you guys are looking at other options, you're taking Mr. Whitaker's consideration, I think that's sufficient, as long as we're taking action and doing that. I don't think we need an official act of the borough management to go on, so I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. So we are still in council communications and presentation, and I'll get to you in a second, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right. I'd like to get council out of the way first. All right, Mr. Prednick.
So as regard to the Kyle Place move to permanent, so I'd like to read a quote from Police Chief Mossman's letter recommendation regarding the permanent placement of probationary officer Kyle Place. His attitude, professional demeanor, and his commitment to this very demanding public service position truly qualify for him for permanent appointment to our department. With that said, I would like to make a motion for the permanent retention of Kyle Place.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Prednick and a second by Ms. Mayo. Discussion on that. Seeing none? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Thank you. Council, any other members of council have anything for council participation or council communication? Mr. Mayor, I know you have something.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As stated, council has stated their wishes regarding the Main Street project, and I will fully embrace and support the plan as it stands, as voted by council. Back to communications, I received a certified letter from a Mr. Stephen Smith on Oxford Avenue in reference to a tree issue. I have given a copy to the manager and a copy to the council members of the West Ward for action and follow-up. And just so council, the newer members of council are aware, anything that comes through the mayor's office that is not in reference to the police department, that may be borough issues, I will take the initial steps to get it to Gene, but also provide you copies of exactly what's going on so you could follow up with your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mayo?
I actually received a couple of communications over the last month. One about the sidewalks on Reeves Park not being shoveled, and then the other about the sidewalks near our municipal garage on, I can't remember what the name of that street is, Buchanan, not being shoveled either. And, you know, I know that our guys are working hard, and they did work hard, but I fully believe that we cannot be out there writing tickets for people who did not shovel their sidewalks when ours are not shoveled. And I just wanted to keep a closer eye on that if we can moving forward, especially with this huge snowstorm coming tomorrow. The sidewalk on Buchanan is a very tricky one because it's on a steep incline. And if we don't shovel there and someone falls, it's going to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple things just to address the issues that were raised in public participation. Regarding the ADA compliance of this building, it's my understanding that we are compliant, and I haven't heard anything else other than that. I don't think we need to do anything there. I think we've already vetted that issue and looked at it, and so. With regard to the Buttonwood Road, I just asked Mr. Crack to look into that to make sure that that is a private road, or he may already know the answer.
It is a private road, and we'll have to figure out how to manage that. It's not a dedicated road. That portion is not. It's almost as if it's an elongated drive for the businesses that are there, but we'll still take a look at it.
And since it's not a dedicated road, that means that we cannot plow it because it's private property. That's my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay. With regard to the points raised by Dr. Sanic regarding 12F, just a clarification. I'd ask Mr. Crack to clarify that, what that is.
Sure. Currently, when somebody submits an application if somebody comes in and they're looking at the zoning officer makes a determination of whether they meet zoning or not. If he denies the project because it doesn't meet zoning, the remedy is to go before the zoning hearing board. Currently, the process is that it goes before the planning commission, then goes to the zoning hearing board. But because the planning commission is what the recommending body, the reality is the entity should be coming before this body, and this body decides whether or not it wants to represent at the zoning hearing board. So it shortens the process and removes an additional cost burden to the applicant. Same be true for the conditional use hearing. The conditional use is a decision for this body to make. Again, the current process is the applicant pays and goes before the planning commission, and most of you have seen the types of information that comes back through on the conditional use. There's not a lot of substance to it because they are in fact a recommending body. The intent is then to shorten that by having the application come to Borough Council to schedule a conditional use hearing. For many projects, they're small in scale, and council can make a decision literally that same night. They're small projects, and you've seen several of them come through. If it is a larger project that needs conditional use, such as Madison at French Creek, then council would be right to send that project to the Planning Commission to get more detail and allow that project to come forward. In either case, copies of those would still go, no matter what your policy is, the copies would still go before the Planning Commission so that they can send you information if they are so inclined. That's what bubbled up out of the policy committee, I believe it was.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Perednik?
Will we have council participation when we review 12F, or should we make our comments now?
I would hold count. I was just asking Mr. Crack to clarify for the purposes of the public participation. Council will have discussion on it when the motion's made, if the motion's made out of policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bowers.
Well, thank you, Council President. I would just like to thank the Borough Manager and Public Works Director for escalating the condition of some of the state roads through the borough to State Rep Warren Camp, specifically the condition after our snowstorms and ice storms. Clearly, there's quite the dividing line between Montgomery County, Route 113 in Montgomery County and Route 113 as it comes through Phoenixville Borough. Quite the demarcation at the bridge. Would also just remind staff that when those matters need to be escalated, to also include State Rep Becky Corbin as well on those matters. And again, I'd like to thank Becky Corbin. She did send to us a breakdown of the liquid fuels funding that we'll be receiving over the next, I think she was out 4 or 5 years. So that was a nice breakdown to receive, and so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Any other council participation? Seeing none, move on to new business. Any new business to be brought? That's the fastest item tonight so far. Moving on to resolutions. Moving on. I keep hitting the wrong button. I apologize. Moving on to resolutions. Item 9A, consider approval of a resolution affirming the appointment of Shai Perednik to the vacant East Ward Council seat on January 14th, 2014. What is council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Bowers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 7-0. I'll note that Ms. Mayo is out of the room at the time of the vote. 9B, consider approval of a resolution authorizing signatories for the PennDOT Master Agreement for Adjustments of Incorporated Utility Facilities 2011 through 2014. What is council's pleasure?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing signatories for the PennDOT Master Agreement for adjustments of incorporated utility facilities 2011-2014.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Mr. Richter. Any comments or questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Moving on to item 10, public hearings. We have a continuation of the conditional use hearing for the project known as Friendship Village, located at 501 Franklin Avenue. I will turn the meeting over to the Vice President, Ms. Dugan, recusing myself as I have in the past for this matter. So, Ms. Dugan.
Okay, thanks a lot. I guess this is the continuation of the conditional use hearing from last month. I suppose we have more presentation here, so you can go ahead and get to it.
Excuse me, Vice President Dugan, I suggest you make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, we have to open it again? I never
Yes.
closed it.
Well, it was continued. I would just recommend that you make a motion. to
Okay, do I have to get somebody else to make the motion, though, since now
Nope.
I'm
You
running
can
it?
make the motion. Anyone can make the motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to reopen the conditional use hearing for Friendship Village.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Please continue with your presentation.
Very good. Good evening, council. Is everyone okay? Or?
Excuse me, Councilor Dugan, I believe.
Thank you. Councilman Dugan, I would just wanted to question whether new documentation presented on February 7th to the borough manager, whether we do recognize that as additional exhibits to the application.
We'll be officially submitting them into the record tonight. I just wanted to make sure you had them in advance of the hearing.
Is it appropriate that these exhibits be brought to our attention after the fact?
Well, I don't want to, directly into Ms. Dugan, Mr. Bowers, Borough Council did choose to continue the public hearing. They didn't close the public hearing. So with that action and the fact that the public hearing is now opened, they do have the ability to present additional evidence, so, which I believe is what they will do with these documents, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Okay?
Okay. I did submit them to Gene in advance of the hearing. I did pre-mark all those exhibits. You may all have them already, but does everyone need copies of them? Do you have them? What I did was I updated the exhibit table. We now have 22 exhibits. The new exhibits are items A18 through 22. Does anybody want the additional exhibits in hand? Anyone else?
Yeah.
And for the audience, Adam intends to bring them up on the board. Let's start. With me this evening, I have Bruce Weinsteiger, who's a representative of the applicant, as well as testified in both aspects, and Adam Suppley from KMS Design Group, whose firm had prepared the plans and been working on it. I think the first person I'd call is Adam at this point. And I guess still nothing up there yet. How do we get it going? Or is he working on it?
I believe he's working on it.
I said, of the additional exhibits that were are submitted, the transportation plan and the drainage diagrams are what Mr. Suppley's organization had been involved in preparing. The transportation plan, there was discussion. Originally, Mr. Suppley indicated that with regard to the transportation plan, that was included in our other exhibit, our community and fiscal impact analysis. There was some discussion of whether a separate plan needed to be submitted. Mr. Suppley has since supplemented that, and that's what you have in your packet as Exhibit A18. It really doesn't say anything more than what he had said at the previous hearing, and that's mainly that this facility will be serviced by public transportation. It describes details of the county rover system, which is available to residents that are, is it 65 or 62, Adam?
62.
Anyone over 62. And also that arrangements will be made through management on the property. If neither one of those two options work for the residents, that arrangements will be made for the residents for other private forms of transportation, such as a van service or taxis will be arranged through the property management on site. And that's really what that study says. So what I would turn to Mr. Suppley, would I fairly and adequately summarize your transportation plan that was prepared?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
And would you be willing to adopt that summary as your own?
Yes, I would.
All right. If you, so I'm introducing the transportation plan. I don't think we have to get into detailed discussion regarding it. It's really previously described. All right, we still don't have our, what I'd really like Adam to describe for you is the drainage diagrams, because many of the residents that were present at the time, one of their biggest concerns was with regard to drainage. And as soon as we see it up there.
Were those diagrams submitted?
What's that?
Were those
Yes.
diagrams submitted?
Yes, they were.
So I can just speak on them if we can't get it up.
I mean, I was hoping for the benefit of the residents, they could see them.
And I do have it on a board too if we need to.
Do you have it here?
I do.
All right,
Yes.
so why don't you grab that?
It's right.
Apologize. On the computer? Function.
It should be function F4, but I did that.
Still nothing?
So,
All right, for the benefit of everybody, this in your packet is marked as Exhibit 821. I guess you can follow along your packets. I'll hold this up for the residents. I'm trying to figure out the best location for this. For
you need to
everyone.
spin.
So, Adam, why don't you please describe what we're looking at here on this diagram?
Sure. What we have is the topography from DVRPC aerial photographs. These are 2-foot contours showing generalities of the grading of the site and how the site currently drains today, shown by the blue wavy arrows that we have, just to get an idea of what's happening on the site today. Basically, the water that runs down the site, some of it does leave the site, and basically, you know, it can jump over the berm that's shown straight down from the building pad that exists today, and get into the area of the residents that front on Franklin and Ann Street. Some of the water makes its way over towards the athletic fields. Some of the athletic field water will just continue on down to Grant Street. Oh, there we go. Looks like we've got some progress, but we'll keep going with the board.
There you go.
All right. Onto the big screen. Let's see. I'm going to jump back to the plan that we were just looking at. If everyone can see that, basically the area that we're looking at, this being the site where I'm showing with the cursor, and the rest of the Friendship Field, athletic fields off to the right a little bit. We're showing with small wavy arrows generally the drainage patterns as they exist today. There is a small sediment basin in the bottom corner of the site that does collect some water that would run directly into it. Any of the inlets that are there, most of them are popped up out of the ground, so they don't really catch much water except for what falls directly into them. But the area that's sloped into that basin, that water would be caught by the basin. It's basically designed to let it settle out briefly and then exit via the pipe drainage system, which I'm showing. I'm following with my cursor here. That eventually makes its way down to Grant Street and to the borough infrastructure for stormwater. Our site would need to be designed to be able to work within the capacities of that pipe and any of the downstream utilities for stormwater. What we have in the next diagram is what we anticipate as post-development, in which we show that with the blue arrows, basically unchanged drainage diagram, and with the green arrows, how we anticipate the water to flow once the project is constructed. Basically, all the water that falls onto the site will be controlled on site and will go into an underground stormwater basin where I have the cursor outlining the area right now. There will be a completion of the curb along the bottom edge of the property where there is none today. The curb actually goes about halfway across the property from where my cursor is now, heading east. From the center of the property, the south center of the property to west, there's no curbing there right now. And so the water could just run down the hill slightly. So what would happen is the stormwater would go into the basin in the bottom right corner, which is ground. It's underneath the proposed parking lot. It would be collected in that basin, and it would be retained for the proper amount of time till it can be released slowly through the drainage pipe that was designed and installed with the intention of a development in this portion of the site. So from that stormwater basin, the water would slowly leave the site at a controlled rate and make its way down to Grant Street as well. There's no proposed topography changes to off-site, which would be the athletic fields as we show with the blue arrows.
Now, at the previous hearing, there was a lot of concerns with regard to stormwater management with the properties directly, I would say, south from the athletic field. I guess, is in your opinion, that stormwater originating across the athletic fields versus being from the proposed development site?
It's probably a combination of both. There's certainly some potential for be leaving the site in its current conditions to the residents that are south of the site, to their properties. And there's also some potential for some water from the athletic field area to be entering on towards Ann Street, but not a whole lot. But we anticipate that once the development is completed properly, that stormwater will be controlled properly as well.
I have no further questions for Mr. Suppley. You can help with Bruce's exhibits. Do we want to do questions of Mr. Suppley, or should we finish up with Mr. Weinsteiger at this point and then do questions at
Does
the
council have any questions on this part of the presentation?
Just if I may just ask a quick question.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Suppley, regarding from stormwater drain, you're showing any water that's on that property? I mean, from your professional opinion in looking at the grading and adjacent properties, do you foresee the stormwater management having a greater benefit beyond just that property? I mean, is it going to affect the way that water's running off on the road on one of the roads? Is it? I mean, I'm curious as to your opinion on the adjacent properties.
As far as runoff towards the roads, there may be some water that leaves the site today that would be picked up by our stormwater control. It probably wouldn't be significant, but there certainly wouldn't be any more water that would exit the site onto the roads. We're required to control that water so that we're not flooding anything downstream or changing any drainage patterns in a undesirable way.
Do you foresee an increased flow of water down Franklin?
Based on this site, no, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Can the current water infrastructure handle the additional flow from that basin that you're proposing?
It has to. We have to design so that it can. That therefore kind of backs up to us to size the basin to an adequate size that it can handle it. We can't release water any faster than the borough's infrastructure can handle without us upgrading the infrastructure. And based on initial studies by our engineer on the team, we can work with what we have, and that's what was designed for the previous project as well. So that pipe is fairly new, and it was intended for development on this site, so it should be able to handle it without a problem. And we have to design with what we're given.
Anyone else? Was there anyone in the public who wanted to make a comment or anything on this witness? Oh, I'm sorry, did you raise your hand?
Point of order, should we have comments from both professionals before we take comments from the public?
The last time.
The applicant got to ask questions, council got to ask questions. This is a public hearing.
Okay, what I was going to say is the way we did it last time is we did it on each particular witness, so I'm going to continue doing that, not even worrying about the time. That's not a factor. So go ahead, public.
Do I have to hold it? Can we just put it up there? Okay. Victoria Viscuso, 427 Franklin Avenue. Can I have the slide before? Sure. Sure. VISCUSO, 427 Franklin Avenue. Okay. Now, being a member of the public, I'm not familiar with what I'm saying here, but if I understand correctly, that those little squiggly lines there are somewhat like arrows. You're saying that's where the water is currently being sent.
Based on the topography on the screen, yes. It's basically just showing the general direction that water would flow based on the topography.
Okay. So you don't have factual basis on that. You're just assuming that's where the water's going right now.
I'm using the topography from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, and we're showing the general trends of the water as it flows.
Okay. So you're basing your second slide on that same information, the topography and what you're planning on doing there. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is because you have two arrows pointing pretty much directly at my house, and I am one of the very fortunate people who do not get any water whatsoever in my basement. So you have some strong arrows. Actually, there's an arrow on top of my house. There's no water coming in my house. Let's keep it that way.
The arrows are not
So
pointing at water going into someone's basement. We're showing surface flow. So based on the topography, we're showing how it would flow.
So you would expect that if my house has two arrows pointed at it, that I should see some water. My mother, who lives directly behind my property, it doesn't really look like there's any arrows pointing at her house. There's not even any arrows really very close to her house. She's still underwater. She's been underwater.
Is that this one?
Nope, that's me.
This one?
Down.
This one.
That's her.
Okay.
You know, she's been underwater, I can't tell you for how many weeks now. Her basement is full of water, and not just a little water. You need some water. So I can't talk until he's back.
Okay, please continue. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, the only comment that I had regarding these two slides was this. If we're assuming that this is where the water is going now, and then when the second slide comes on, again, that makes me feel like we're assuming that's where the water will go once you're done. So that's my only comment here. I proof positive that that information not correct right now.
We are assuming where the water is going today. We are designing where the water is going in the future, and that's going to be a much more accurate level of design because we have full control over that.
I have a couple of questions. My name is Richard Kirkner, Kirkner. I live at 405 Ann Street. I have actually two questions about the runoff. The first question is the net change in the runoff during a storm of comparing this diagram to the design diagram, and that's a net overall change, and also what will be the effect of water entering onto Ann Street? Will it be less or more during a storm?
The amount of water that would be leaving the site onto Ann Street, if anything, would be reduced if it's impacted at all. We are required to control all of the water on our site, and as any impervious coverage is added, it needs to be controlled for, and the stormwater basin needs to be designed and will be designed to accommodate any increases in impervious coverage to keep the runoff at or below the current conditions.
Thank you. And I guess my third question, or that was question 1A and B, but this question has to do with the transportation plan and what is the nature of the transportation service that the owner or manager of the property will provide. And before I step away, I would like to say, Madam Chair, I would ask that you do please sit there to run the meeting, only so you can see us out in the audience. And you know, when we have a question or a concern, we can be more easily recognized, and you can also control the microphone from there. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other members of the public want to speak?
I have a question on the floor here.
Do you want to address that, Adam, in regard to the transportation plan?
The information outlined in the transportation plan describes the transportation needs of their anticipated transportation needs of the residents that we would expect in a community like this, and the options that are available. Based on experience of other sites that are similar to this, about half of the residents will drive. So they'll be able to use their cars and go where they need to be. The rest of the residents have options as are outlined in the transportation plan, including SEPTA, which is less than a quarter mile away for the closest bus stop, the county Rover system, Chester County's Rover, which is basically an on-call, on-demand system where you set up an appointment and they come pick you up and take you to whatever you need, you know, to a doctor's appointment, to your friend's house, to absolutely necessary things, to, you know, just personal needs. That's available as well. There's a taxi in Phoenixville, a taxi company that has just recently started within the past couple months, and at the same time, there's the manager for the site. If there's any needs for additional transportation beyond what's supplied, the manager of the site will help to arrange transportation to make sure that the residents will get the transportation that they need. But luckily, in this borough, in a relatively busy community, we have several transportation options to the residents of this site.
My name is Rob Wallison. It's Walesyn. I reside at 207 Grant Street. If you look at the map up there, my house is actually the very bottom right house there in the corner there, the one where, yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Keep going right. Right there.
Right there.
Where all the arrows are pointing at. So you can see that I definitely would have some concern here. I guess I have a few questions. You just said that what you build or what you construct needs to basically support what's already there. It's built down in the Borough Fields there, Friendship Field, so you're saying it needs to accommodate that, whatever you do?
We are required to mitigate any of the stormwater, additional stormwater that would be caused by our development, but we're not developing the athletic fields, so we are not changing any of the topography or the stormwater management for the athletic fields.
So anything down in those fields, that's just the way it is. I guess my second question would be, what guarantee can you give me that that would not be disrupted, would actually work with the current system that's in place in those fields? Can you give me a guarantee right now, right here, that that would not happen?
That what would not happen?
Well, that that they would support what you're doing up there. That would actually not give us any problems whatsoever. You can give me a guarantee?
Excuse me. The design of the system would be sealed by a professional engineer licensed in Pennsylvania, and we would also be required to escrow as we design this, as it's being inspected to make sure that the project is being constructed properly according to the engineer. That's the guarantee that's offered in every construction project in the borough.
Okay. I guess my last question would be, is the borough prepared to give me a guarantee that what they do up there won't affect what's in that field? And are you prepared to make any adjustments or spend more money to fix what they might disrupt up there by what they put in? That is my question to you, because you know what, I fought tooth and nail for a few years to get that system that was up in there right now, to get that done, you know, and I don't take water anymore, and I want to keep it that way. So unless I have a guarantee that that can't happen or be made worse, I ain't buying it. I'm just not. You can't give me a guarantee. You can't look at me and say, that's not going to happen. It's impossible to do.
You're right. It's impossible to guarantee.
Okay.
But we are
And neither
required
can the
to design
borough.
it properly, and we're required to escrow for it, and we're required to make it right before the borough releases our escrow money on it. So that's the guarantee financially. There is a financial guarantee. You want me to personally guarantee to you that the system will be designed properly? I'm not the licensed engineer. I cannot do that.
Well, I want somebody to, and I want the
there will
borough
be
to understand.
there will be someone on our project team that will guarantee that. That's
Okay.
his
And
license.
can I get that guarantee from the borough that they'll fix that if something gets disrupted up there? Because you know what, there were times where I've had a lot of the borough councilmen and the public works director, I know Brian Watson loves me. You know, I was told at one point that bringing up these things by residents, often they do it just to try to get something from the borough. And those words ring in my head when I was told that one day by a councilman. And you know what, all that was being said as my basement was being flooded and I'm losing much valuable property in my house. I couldn't believe that those are the words I was hearing. So you know, a guarantee goes a long way for me. It does for a lot of these people here. And like I said last time we were here, you know, I want you to look out at those people right now and basically promise them that you're going to give them a guarantee that things will get fixed if this fails, if this actually goes through, which I hope it doesn't, because you'll be letting them down, and people will remember that. They will. So, Semper Fi.
Any other comments from the public?
My name is Marie Ashton, and I live at 432 Ann Street, the northernmost property next to the proposed project. And
Which one is that? Is that this one?
no, it's that one right there. This one here? Yes, that's the one. I've watered my cellar now. The borough has done nothing to help me. I have waited, and when they had the swale, I called it a swale. It was something that drew mosquitoes and children to play in. It was never, in my estimation, even designed to hold water, because all it ever had was a little bit of moisture in the bottom, because most of it was coming down to my property. And as much as you want to say nice things, Adam, about it trickling, it does more than trickle. It trickles now, and I can't even get excited to think that it's going to improve, even after you say that this is going to be done by all kinds of professionals, but I really didn't hear something that could make me feel that there was some hope if you go ahead with this project. And for it to go over to Grand Street, well, that's good, but it's been coming down right over that little berm, or whatever you want to call that, for some time. I've lost a lot of hope of it improving at all. Your presentation sounds good. We won't even go into transportation right now, but the drainage, I wish I could put full faith in what you're saying, and in your experts that are going to supervise all this, because they don't live there, and it makes a lot of difference when you have been living there since 1962 and struggling along. So the borough's done nothing. We've talked to a lot of people when my husband was alive, and we had a lot of reasons and promises, and here we are. We're back here. That's what I have to say.